Hello. How are you, Scott? I'm pretty good. My eye isn't all red anymore, which I had that trouble last week. My eye was all irritated and looked terrible, and I thought, well, that wouldn't look very nice in a video. You'd all go, "What's the matter with your eye?" It was the allergies, and I'd rubbed it too much, basically. Um, we were talking about the animals in World War One the other day. And I was very much um, surprised by the numbers of 8 million horses, mules, and donkeys having been victims of the violence of World War One. But now they talk about how there are also basically a total of 16 million animals served. They put that in quotes, served. This is theguardian.com I'm getting this from. Some died before they reached the Western Front. 94,000 horses sent from North America in 1917 drowned when their vessels were sunk by submarines. Um, I mean, I had no idea. It seems to be an incredibly large number. I would say it outnumbered the people fighting the war at that time, though I don't know the numbers now. But that would be like every person had an animal, practically. Um, Now we know that they use horses and donkeys and mules and stuff for pulling things and carrying things, and they didn't have, well, at least in my timeline, they didn't have um, the kind of motorized vehicles that they had in World War II, obviously. So, and this is this was between 1914 and 1918. That's 4 years. Uh, the RSPCA estimates that 484,143 horses, mules, camels, and bullocks were killed in British service between 1914 and 1918. That's just the British. It doesn't include total. 2,700 drowned when their vessel was sunk from America. Trench dogs, I never heard of trench dogs, hunted for rats in the trenches. Anybody ever hear of trench dogs? I've never heard of trench dogs. Um, I mean, it's kind of makes sense, but I mean the dogs that I always heard about were just either taking messages or doing some kind of guarding kind of thing. Have them down there in the trenches killing rats. I've heard of trench foot, yeah, trench foot, but not trench dogs. And it's like, wow, this is kind of strange. And and the German army alone employed 30,000 dogs. Dogs were recruited from animal shelters. When that supply ran out, they went to the general public. So one Englishwoman said now that she'd given her husband and her sons, now she had to give her dog too. So uh, apparently this is what dogs did. They took supplies to the wounded, so they could treat themselves, and mercy dogs would stay with dying soldiers to keep them company. Such stories bear witness to the loyalty of animals. Mercy dogs, that's another thing. I had never heard of trench dogs, never heard of mercy dogs. I think that's a lovely idea, so that the soldier would have someone there or something, some animal there. Dick, a black retriever messenger dog, was wounded in action but recovered enough to resume his duties. He developed a limp, grew weaker, and had to be put down. Postmortem showed that he'd been working with a bullet lodged in his chest and a shell splinter close to his spine. So that dog was in a lot of pain. Hi, Zach. So now we have like 8 million total horses, mules, and donkeys dying during World War X. World War One. And then we have trench dogs to kill the rats. We have messenger dogs. We have mercy dogs. And, this was never, I've watched all kinds of documentaries and read the history. I love history. And I do not have any clue as to what these were. I've never heard of them before. They would have put them in documentaries as to tug at your heart. They do that. They yank your heart out and stomp it really good. I don't know. If they send a mercy dog to be with someone dying, what happens to the dog afterwards? I'm a little, gobsmacked over that. We talked, MA talked about the baboon called Jackie. And we also talked about that, I do believe it was a Polish unit or Yugoslavian, I can't remember, that had a bear, a brown bear they picked up in Turkey. Do they have brown bears in Turkey? Maybe they did. Hello, Raul. Anyway, so during World War I, there's all these things going on with animals. And to me, some of this is an Emmy. I couldn't swear to you all of it is, but the virtual numbers of the animals that died either in transport or because of injuries sustained in the battles is just mind-boggling. Baboon called Jackie in one South African unit with sharp hearing who would tug at men's sleeves if she detected enemy advances. Hey, they're coming. Oh, that's a horrible idea, Adam, but you're cooking cod and you're talking about people eating dead animals. You have my admiration there that you can do that within a short period of time. Hi, Ghosty. So we have all these 8 million horses and other equine and bullocks, whatever they use, yaks or bulls or whatever. There's certain ones that are used for pulling things. And then we have the mercy dogs, and we have the messenger dogs, and the trench dogs that went and killed rats. Did you know that slugs were used when they discovered they could visibly demonstrate their discomfort in the presence of mustard gas in smaller quantities than humans could sense, allowing soldiers to don their gas masks in time? Slugs. Maybe those big yellow ones. I don't know, those really big ones. Of course, what the slug said when he was sitting on top of a turtle, right? What the slug said when he was riding on top of the turtle? Anybody? Whee! Yeah, that's right, Maria. Whee! Everything's relative, isn't it? So here we have slugs, and it bears to question, what did they carry the slugs around in? Did they feed them in a little jar or something, you know? I mean, okay, now at the vast military hospital in Netley on Southampton Water, where thousands of shell-shocked troops were treated, including the poet Wilfred Owen, donkeys were employed to calm men suffering from PTSD. On ships, dogs, pigs, and even magpies became animal spirits to deflect the stress of war. Around 1,000 pigeons served too. One delivered a message from a U.S. battalion trapped behind enemy lines. Our artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it. The birds' work was so important that they were protected by the Defense of the Realm Act, which criminalized any attempt to kill or maltreat them. And it was ironic implementation of animal rights to mirror the first conservation law in Britain introduced by the 8th century Saint Cuthbert, who declared that eider ducks of the Fame Islands should be protected. Okay. So what do you think of whales? What do you think of whales? What do you think that's going on with whales? Whales were used for the same purpose. Well, it says apparently in the Fame Islands were being used by the RAF for target practice. Big ducks or geese. So you guys in the UK were using them for target practice on that island. It makes me think a little bit that you guys are a little bit I don't know. I don't know the right word for it. And you talk about us. Anyway, whales were used for the same purpose. It was the first time cetaceans had been seen and photographed from the air. On one account noted in the half-lights, these huge monsters bore a strong resemblance to a submerged U-boat. And as a rule in war was, when in doubt, bomb. A good many of them were killed by our aircraft. Meanwhile, 1,705,000 whales died in the South Atlantic to furnish rifle oil, fuel for trench stoves, and oil to protect against trench foot. Germany culled dolphins and seal for their oil. Whales were also co-opted to deal with food shortages. I can't talk today. Most terribly, these placid animals were processed into munitions themselves as their bodies yielded glycerin for bombs. I did not know that whales had glycerin, but glycerin is a byproduct of mammals, I do believe. Free Willy, yeah. Can't kill a pigeon. Well, messenger pigeons aren't just any old pigeon. They're not the ones that are pooping on Lord whatever in the square, okay? Those aren't messenger pigeons. Messenger pigeons are a particular, I guess, breed of pigeons. Now we know there's all kinds of breeds of pigeons now, ridiculously looking, just like chickens. There's just so many now that didn't exist, that just sort of popped up out of nowhere by demented breeders who thought, oh, maybe this would look cute. Okay. Anyway, so messenger pigeons, and how many did it say? It was like a ridiculous number of them. 100,000 pigeons served. Now, these are special pigeons. They're homing pigeons. They're I have a hard time figuring out how they got them to go where now they're designed so that you release them and they go back home. I don't know how they could send one to a place unless they took them from there and had them um, kind of imprinted on that place and then took them away to where they would send messages so they'd go right back to that place. So I have a hard time trying to figure out how did they do that? How did they get pigeons to go where they wanted? Because they're homing, they go home. They don't go, you don't say, well, you go over there, please. I mean, that's not how it works. And the fact that they had 100,000 of them seems a little bit crazy. That's a whole lot of pigeons. And it's like, would they have people raising them for that? And they have to be trained. It's not like they just, I mean, they have certain instincts, of course, but it's not that simple. And it was like, that's kind of weird. Um, well, it was kind of funny as a side here. In 1924, essay entitled "The Impudence of Flags: Our Power, Resources of My Elephants, Whales, and Gorillas." H.G. Wells, prophetic author of War of the Worlds, wrote, "The dwindling world fauna of this planet is in urgent need of international game laws and a supranational gamekeeper. Species of whales are being exterminated because the ocean is no man's land." That's in 1924 they were concerned. People were concerned about our willy-nilly destruction of not only each other, but all the animals on the planet. Um, so basically, this is like the bizarrest thing. Oh, goodness, where did it go? Okay. Of course, it makes sense that, of course, canaries, all about the canaries in the mine thing, that they are very sensitive to toxic air. Hi, Jojo. Oh, no, Jojo. I'm thinking of the anime. No. I don't know if that's what your name is from, but um horses and camel-mounted troops were used in the desert campaigns, but on the Western Front, new weapons like machine gun made cavalry charges increasingly difficult. Yeah, yeah, you heading the charge of the horses and the horses just mowed down. That would just be, maybe that's why there was such incredible loss of life, because they just didn't realize these animals just can't be shot willy-nilly in that way. Of course, we know that they had cats on ships, but I didn't know they had pigs, therapy pigs, I guess, on ships. Oh, Joanna, I should have remembered that. Duh. Um, foxes. There was a fox mascot for number 32 Squadron in France. There's a picture here of camels carrying wounded men to safety. They have one body on each side of their hump. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. I'll probably get the screen share one of these times to work for me. Last time I tried it, I bungled it pretty badly, so I'll have to try again. Red Cross dogs were used in France. And they're all kinds of dogs. They're not any particular breed. Big ones, little ones. Horses wearing gas masks. A German trench mortar had a monkey mascot. Italians used mules. Carrier pigeons in their traveling basket. Yeah, you mean that's it. They'd have to take the pigeons with them to wherever they were, and then they'd have to, put a message on them if they were having some trouble where they were to send message back to headquarters. So they would be imprinted to go back to a particular place. So they'd carry these pigeons in these little baskets, put a message on them, release them, and say, "Hey, we're having trouble here. Um, you need to send more people." They didn't have communication like we do now. Um, Maybe we need to use that when there's a big solar flare. Send pigeons. Uh, a German war dog was fitted with an apparatus for laying telephone wires, walking across muddy ground. So he's got this little spool on a harness on top of him that's unrolling telephone wire for communication. Yeah, I mean, you could have a pig as a friend, and they're like dogs. They're very smart. It's sort of a shame that we eat them, but I mean, they're not really attractive animals, so I guess that's why we eat them. If they were cute like a dog, we probably wouldn't. I mean, it's eye in the beholder no thing, but yeah, so I don't know. But that reminds me, my folks raised a pig before I was born. I'm pretty sure, right when I was a baby, we raised animals for food and stuff. They hunted and they had a garden. We were country people, and they had raised a pig, and this pig loved my mom, and it would run its snout up and down her legs and stuff. I mean, they're like a dog. They'll follow you around. You can teach them tricks. They attach to you. And when it came time to butcher him, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. They sold it to a neighbor, and then they bought their pig. I guess they traded pigs, and they, I'm just thinking that's kind of, even country people can get attached to an animal. But I mean, isn't it a shame to kill something that sentient, that responsive and emotional? That I mean, it's only thing I eat mostly is chicken, turkey, and fish nowadays. I just have a hard time with anything else. I mean, a burger maybe once in a blue moon, but I mean, if you are trying to survive, I mean, the pig's going to go. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. I'm not ridiculous about it, but anyway. So laying telephone wires. And all kinds. I'll post these websites on after the stream, so you can go look for yourself because it's pretty interesting. And it's like carrier pigeons. Australian demonstrated the docility of his camel by putting his wrist in his mouth. Now, remember when there was a time when camels had? I know Eva talked about this. Eva. About the fangs that camels had, and I'm thinking they still have them. Anybody know? Have they looked at camels lately? Have you looked at gift camel in the mouth lately? Because I mean, I know that they're wonderful pack animals and stuff, but I haven't ever heard that they're a particularly pleasant animal. I don't think they're like a horse that you create a bond with them, but that could be different now. Horses are a great deal more intelligent nowadays as the ME travels along timelines. Animals seem to be way more intelligent. I remember cats when I grew up were pretty much just cats. Now they're just emotional. They're like emo cats are like so emo now. I don't know if you've noticed that they got attitude, they make faces at you, they laugh. I mean, they don't laugh out loud, but they you know, and that is going too fast. Anyway, yeah. Since when have horses eaten anything but, grain? Horses were never omnivorous. I mean, I always knew like bears were, and that's why you have to be careful about the meat with bears because they're omnivorous and they'll eat animals that could taint their meat. So you could get trichinosis from pigs or bears because they will eat other animals. But horses, I mean, there was that video, wasn't it? The horse that was killing birds and eating them. I think it was birds. And I'm just like going, I mean, I grew up around horses. I mean, we had a big, my dad had a big retired racehorse. His name was Red. He was a tall dude. He was a big thoroughbred. He was a beautiful horse. And he was the sweetest thing. This whole thing about stallions being mean horses is baloney. I think it really depends on their natural temperament and how they've been treated. Some, you have to have an electric fence around them because they're so wild, but this one was a sweet horse. He had only one problem. He couldn't stand the little banty chickens my dad had. And if they got in his corral, he would stomp them. Now, he didn't eat them. He just would stomp them because it freaked him out, I guess, because they're little things running around your feet. Kind of like the mouse and the elephant, I guess. But I mean, I've never heard of horses eating anything but grain, ever. Ever. I mean, that's just. Um, Messenger dogs, I don't know how on earth they use those because they'd have to know where to go. Unless they would do them like passenger pigeons or whatever. Or not passenger, but messenger pigeons. That the dog would head back to where, you'd say go home or whatever, go to so and so. I don't know. How intelligent are they now? How intelligent are dogs now that they could use them in such a way in the war? Now we know horses and stuff are used for pack animals and all that. Oh my goodness, they have they have a dog here that looks like a mixed breed with a blanket in front of him with like about 50 rats and a couple of big giant rats dead in front of it it must have been a trench dog. And they saved all the rats it killed. And it's like, wow. I mean, why would anybody do that? I mean, they carry disease. You don't want to have them around. Anyway, enough about animals. I do have my dream dictionary out. If anybody's had a dream that they'd like to have me look up something for you. Just real quick, if anybody has one. If they don't, I have another story, which I thought was interesting. It's in the sciencemag.org online magazine. Um, and I don't know if you've heard of this or not. Crystal, that's my daughter. They do? Well, yeah, I imagine bat roosts smell pretty rank. I bet they can find them pretty easy. Bat guano is pretty amazing fertilizer, but it's strong stuff. You're in a cave, you have to wear like a respirator. It can kill you, I understand, because the ammonia. Bald men. Let me look what bald men have in dreams. I will have to look. I don't know. I don't know. Gosh, this thing is such a slow laptop. Bald. To dream you're going bald suggests a lack of self-esteem or worries about getting older. Alternately, baldness symbolizes humility, purity, and personal sacrifices. You're at a stage in your life where you're confident and fully exposing yourself. That sounds really bad. Oh my goodness. I did want to talk about um, in sciencemag.org. Geologists uncover history of lost continent buried beneath Europe. And we've talked about um, mud flood and everything. But this is supposed to have happened. I don't know if we can believe timelines that we see and whatnot. But they have reconstructed time slice by time slice nearly a quarter of a billion year long history of a vanished landmass that now lies submerged, not beneath an ocean somewhere, but largely below southern Europe. Um, and so basically, what it looks like is, for example, North America and Iberia and all those places, apparently they're all connected. It's not like Pangea per se. There's still oceans and stuff, but there's a lot of it that's submerged now. And I think if you look at the Bahamas and Japan, there's lots of submerged. Looks like human structures, human-made structures, and um, and that's kind of interesting because it shows that North America is connected to, that there's a landmass between Ireland and North America, which I wish I had a better map. Well, I'll put the website up. It's like, so I mean, it's just, it's called Greater Adria, which is south of, beneath southern Europe, Greenland-sized landmass south of the continent. And so it's like only visible remnants of the continent are limestone and other rocks found in the mountain ranges of southern Europe. And yet we see, like in the Bahamas and other places, submerged cities. So it's like the water has risen in prehistory and then went down in prehistory, then rose up again in prehistory. Who knows? Take care, Maria. My daughter's old enough to be online, so I'm kind of glad about that. I don't have to worry about it. Take care, Maria. Have you seen the Crystal? Have you seen the white bats that are not albino? And they're really cute. They're really cute. Um, but anyway, that's something that, the way the morphology changes of the Earth, it's apparently it like grind across tectonic plates, jostled and scraped past, and it created an atlas of the underworld, graveyard of slabs of crust that sunk into the mantle. Portions of Greater Adria now lie as much as 1,500 kilometers below the planet's surface. That's just, I don't know, that's just crazy, I think. You gonna look it up? There's also one that looks like a Halloween bat. It's orange and black and white and kind of crazy looking. Of course, we know that species, they're going to be more and more discovered, of course. But then there's just some that are just plain freaky. And there's changes in known species that I know that Cupie sees all the time. Because she watches documentaries. It's one of her hobbies, that she watches documentaries constantly. And that's why when she has a bunch of them, I put them up in an ME, because I know some of them will be ones you see, but then a lot of them are to her, who's been watching these things, who lives in tropical area on an island, that knows a lot more about sea life and tropical birds, that, I listen to her because I think, well, she's, maybe not all of these will be an ME for you. And it's not likely, because we're all kind of from different places, sort of. But there'll be some that you'll just look at and go, "What the frick is this?" And I hope that my daughter starts paying attention to new things popping up and reading the backstory. And when the backstory says, "Oh, these things were discovered in 1920 and have been written about and this and that," and you've never heard of them and it's your specialty, that's something you need to pay attention to. Anything that you know reasonably well that seems to not make sense to you, you might want to look into more deeply. Another thing, let's see, just sort of out of my brain. Hi, Kurt. How are you? Welcome to my wild and crazy world. So we talked about animals during the war. We talked about this and that. And I'm thinking, I forgot what I was going to talk about. Oh, I was going to talk about near-death experiences. We're eclectic. This channel is very eclectic, if you haven't noticed. Also, I just put up a video on Van Gogh. Now, I belong to a Facebook group. People put down Facebook, but it's a great place if you go to specialized groups on cryptids and paranormal and fungi and animals and, things like this, and art and certain history eras, because a lot of these people are like really, really into it. And they've got some super educated people in there that know their stuff. So don't, I know a lot of people put down Facebook because, oh, it's just all memes. I said, no, there's a lot of groups that are serious, educated people that want inquiry. Our cheekbones, oh yeah, Honduran white bat. NDL. Anyway, cheekbones. Oh, that's something. Could you take care of that? Scott, who's spamming my channel, please. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose. They've got something wrong with it, their computer. It happens sometimes. I'm not going to assume they're being obtuse. Anyway, what was I saying? Lost my train of thought. Anyway, we'll go back to I don't know what I was talking about. Ectophyla alba. Yeah, isn't that a cute bat? Oh, I was talking about Van Gogh. I'm on there. There's a special Facebook group that's all about Van Gogh. and they post his paintings. After I had saved 100 or so, I got tired of saving them. Okay, I'm going to go back and get some more, but I'm going to keep the art ones down to 5 to 10 minutes. 5 minutes is enough because I don't want to make them so long so that they're not memorable, so that if you watch one and you can watch it again and see some changes in the pictures. Um, and he's been credited with painting a flying fox. Now, flying foxes are not European, but people did own exotic animals. There were zoos. I don't understand that. Anyway, um, so there was, a possibility that he'd seen one because someone had one. They're tropical. I do believe they eat fruit. So it's not beyond possibility, but it's certainly not. Yeah. So it's certainly not unheard of. But I also noticed with Van Gogh's paintings that he starts his really early paintings are there now. And he didn't have very many early paintings that I recall. And I found more self portraits, more portraits he's done of other people. In my timeline, his life was really, really, really sad. I mean, he still, I guess, kills himself. I'm not sure. I think he does. But I mean, now he's gone to England. He was going to be a Methodist minister. He fell in love with some English girl. And some of the paintings look very English in what he paints. So I don't know if he painted when he was in England. But he now also has seascapes. And his style changes, which is expected. Your style changes when you paint. We saw that with Picasso, very, very blatantly with Picasso. That his style changed. He went to the point where he could paint almost photorealistically, and then he got tired of it doing it that way and started to explore new ways to express himself. Um, he used a taxidermied flying fox as subject for that painting. Thank you. Now that makes sense. That makes sense. But never heard of him painting it. Never heard of him painting that. That's a totally new painting for me. And it doesn't look like his style, so I'm thinking it was early work. His later work had more of that impressionist kind of feel to it. He's considered a post-impressionist. I mean, I think the names they give things can't possibly be, is more for the years and the general style. You can't really pin down some art that easily, but his art was very interesting in that some of his paintings are drop dead gorgeous. I mean, he always had a few that were really good. Now he has so many that are just gorgeous. 1884, okay, that's his early years. Early years. It wasn't until 1887 or so that he started getting really good and really finding his style, his personal style. His use of color, I love the way he used color. He could do a person's face in blue. He's kind of like very much a modern artist in that sense that he didn't use the typical colors, and yet it would look really amazing. But I was surprised at how many portraits he did. And the first one I did of him about that portrait done by the Australian famous artist, that was new. He had to have some notoriety going on that got some artist friend to paint him. I mean, did a beautiful portrait. I mean, this man was skilled. And in my timeline, Van Gogh had burned a bunch of his paintings. And looking at what he's done now, he's definitely got more money now. He's got a patron helping him because he's using more paint colors. He's painting more paintings. But there's some of them he painted on cardboard. Now, I do not know what cardboard really means at that era. It could be a lot more stable than, our box cardboard. It could be more dense, sturdier. Also, he has a bunch of sketches. Now, if he'd burned his stuff, he probably would have burned his sketches. But now there's all these sketches he's done. And it's absolutely stunning art, absolutely stunning. And his still lifes, you all remember his sunflowers in a vase, Now he's done all kinds of flowers in vases. And absolutely stunning. Some I remember, but I don't know if I remember them from way back. The one of the iris is just, I want a print of that. I'll just tell you that I want a print of that one on my wall. So it's really hard to believe that he wasn't quite well known in his time. Okay, let's talk about near-death experiences. Now, I know some people that are subscribed to my channel have had near-death experiences. A lot of people in the community have had near-death experiences. And, the most famous person is Raymond Moody, who's investigated this and made it less of a stigma, less of people saying you're crazy. You've had two, Joanne? Yeah. My aunt, Zuva, they didn't give people normal names in my family. Anyway, she'd had her gallbladder out and died on the table, I guess. And she goes and her mother meets her, who's passed, my grandmother, and says, sis, which is what the women in our family always called each other, is sis. My mom would call me sis. I didn't call her that, but this is what women called each other in the family. And sis, it's not your time. You have to go back. And so she came back. That kind of experience changes your whole perception of what reality is. That this isn't reality. This is a different place. This is a temporary reality, I guess you could say. So Joanne, what happened to you? How did you end up having two NDEs? If you don't want to share, that's fine. I know it's very personal, and because I do have a few stories I could probably read. Oh, did you? Seriously? Only grown-ups here, please. So you died at the scene? Is that what happened, or died at the hospital? What? Anyway, your grandmother met you. Yeah, it always seems to be a family member, isn't it? Wow. And what was the second time? I mean, that you must have had some PTSD from that accident. That must have really shook it. Did seeing your grandmother help you to feel better? Yeah, I don't understand that. That's kind of weird. Hey, I've come of age. I have people spamming my channel. Ah, I feel special. Oh yeah. Oh, Scott, you're so sweet. Yeah, you just want me to bake you some cookies and mail them to you. I know you. Oh my gosh. Joanne, I'm so glad you didn't stay there. I'm glad you came back. I don't know if you're glad you came back, but I'm glad you came back. Um, wow. Wow. So, what is your feeling about dying now, Joanne? Do you not fear it at all? I've heard of that when they go out of body, but they don't go all the way to the other side. You're not afraid of it anymore. That's what most people say. Most people say that, they don't have a fear of that. Goodness, wasn't it? Who was it? Was it there was someone else who'd had a near death experience. I can't remember who it was. But I'll read you one. Let's see. Hopefully. Oh my, this laptop is not a young laptop, it's an old laptop. Let me see if it's not too long a story. Okay, let me read this to you. This is Oscar Johnson in Sierra Nevada, California, really close to where I live. Day 1, 12:30. Hiking alone in Sierra Nevada always comes with risks. It's pretty rough country. You can just take my word for that. Oscar Johnson knew this, and well, while the protests from his daughter were never enough to dissuade him from doing one of the things he loved, the 67-year-old had consented to take the trails that had cell phone reception at occasional points. He figured this was enough of a concession to safety. Besides, the doctor had said hikes would strengthen his heart. I don't think that's what the doctor meant. Hiking in the Sierra Nevadas is not the kind of hikes that the doctor probably. Hello, Mario. Welcome to my channel. But anyway, he's hiking in the mountains, okay? And it's beautiful. He goes over to his favorite destination. Apparently, there's lots of switchbacks to go up the mountain because the mountains can be very steep, so you can't like just go straight up. There's trails that wind up. And he went to his favorite place, Devil's Fall. Have you ever noticed that? Have you noticed how places where people disappear or where the natives have named it something like devil's this or evil that, or that they're usually not good places and there's a reason why they're called that? Have you noticed that? That this is kind of like a big, huge red flag? Don't go there. Anyway, I guess it's got quite a view, but it has a 1,500-foot drop off to the valley below. I mean, you're not going to survive that if you fall off. He always exercised caution when he approached such a beautiful yet dangerous spot. He took off his backpack and got down on his belly and crawled toward the edge. If you have to do that to look, my guess is this 67-year-old's been an adrenaline junkie all his life. I mean, that's a nope, nope, nope. And he looked at the beautiful vista. And he heard footsteps approach from behind, and he drew back and came to his feet. And oh no, it's a red-headed man dressed in hunting clothes, armed with a rifle, moved toward him with a sense of urgency. There's been an accident, the man said. My phone's dead. Can I use yours? It's in my backpack. And he reached for it. Sorry to hear that. How serious? He handed the man his phone. The man didn't answer as he appeared to scroll through the contacts list for a name. And this guy, Johnson, he goes and says, what are you doing? I'll explain in a minute. The man typed a text message and handed the phone back. He looked at the message that had just been sent, and he turned with apprehension and shock and said, what? As Johnson looked up in disbelief, the man abruptly thrust his rifle butt forward, striking the stunned hiker in the chest, and it knocked him down very close to the edge and took his breath away. By instinct, he grabbed the assailant's wrist and twisted hard to deflect another strike, and they struggled chest to chest until the rifle discharged. It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? Apparently, it didn't shoot anybody. And with all his strength, Johnson drove his fist down, scoring a hard punch. But this guy was a lot younger. So the guy rammed his knee into Johnson's groin and doubled him over. Okay. The man shifted his stance and gripped the rifle by the barrel. Devil's fall, perfect justice, he said as he swung the weapon like a battering, aiming at a fastball. Okay, so the blow struck Johnson, and he careening over the edge of the cliff, plummeting toward the valley below. And so here we have, he's fallen over the edge or been pushed. I can only guess. And then there's this other person at 12:35. I'm not quite sure. I guess they're trying to find what's going on here. Anyway, so I don't know what happened there. Couldn't tell you. It didn't make any sense to me. Anyway, one can only assume that he died in that, but then it doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure. Oh, it's supposed to be just a book. Never mind, that's not really happening. That didn't make sense. I'm supposed to read things about... Oh, there was a thing here about people who died at certain times. So that was just part of the book. So I was like, well, that seemed little improbable. So I'm glad it was just a book. It's like there's weird things in the world. Oh, a Devil's Creek. Yeah, the Native Americans would name them things like that because they were bad. They had bad energy. And so if something's named that, it's not something to, go. Don't go there. Just don't go there. Anyway, there's this one guy talking about how if you live to be 1,000 months old, you'll be 83 1/3. And he says a good time to die. Sigmund Freud died at 83 1/3, exactly 1,000 months. Lord Alfred Tennyson, Edgar Degas, Gene Wilder, Thomas Jefferson, Victor Hugo, Gene Kelly, Paul Newman, Henry Ford, Samuel Beckett, Ted Williams, Leonard Nimoy, Andrew Carnegie. It's like the 27 Club with the, Hello, anybody who came in. Anyway, so I think, there's also stuff on Facebook. There's a thing of history pages, archaeology and history. And they post stuff that's obviously mud flood. And I'm going to do a video on some of the pictures I procured from that site that I haven't seen anywhere in any streams. Hello, Basil. And, I mean, with that continent that's been lost 140 million years ago, we know timeline. We know that when they date things, we know that a lot of times they're just guessing. They're using various scientific means to determine age. And some of them are better than others. And I think some of them are based on how they see things happen now in the way of tectonic plates moving, that they figure that they're consistent throughout time when they may not be. So I mean, there's a lot to look into that. Another thing that I've looked at is also assassinations. Now we all know about Kennedy, who's now in a car with 5 other people in a 6-seater instead of a 4-seater. And many more videos or films of the events that are not that were not there when I originally saw it. I was a pretty young kid when he was assassinated, but and you grow up watching. Every year at the anniversary of the assassination, you watch newsreels and you watch documentaries. I mean, this was always something the news people did. So I've seen that Zapruder or whatever film you want to call it many times, and it was the only film that showed the actual shooting. Now there's films all over the place in color, which Super 8 was never in color back then for me. And so, when you've grown up seeing it one way and then all of a sudden it's a different way, that's kind of what got me into the Mandela effect. I'm just like looking at this like going, what? How can this be? And you run through your head how you could, that you're not misremembering it, which is an incredible insult. But I mean, I also was shocked to know that Gandhi had been assassinated. Now, Gandhi now is a pretty kind of weird thing anyway, because now he's got morally inappropriate things that he may have done. He's killed by a Hindu nationalist or terrorist. And I know the Hindus are basically, I thought they were pretty nonviolent in general. He was part of that freedom from England and also freedom for Pakistan. Pakistan was trying to get its independence from India. Now I'm not well up on that history. Maybe Scott knows more than I. So, but I mean, it was really, I didn't know he was assassinated. I thought he just, died of old age. And so now he's been assassinated. So that's a big change for me. He participated in the South African wars against the Boers on the British side. During World War I, he supported the British and its allied forces by recruiting Indians to join the British Army, which I thought was interesting. He encouraged his people to fight on one side of the war in Europe and Africa at the cost of their lives. And pacifists criticized and questioned Gandhi, who defended these practices by stating, "It would be madness for me to sever my connection with the society which I belong." So Gandhi was not the originator of the principle of nonviolence, but I mean, he he did an about face about nonviolence. Here he's encouraging people to go to war, and it's just his whole story is just very, very convoluted. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I'm getting all these interesting people in the room. Well, anyway, so we've gone over animals during the war. We've gone over near-death experiences a little bit. Gandhi, look into Gandhi. The skull changes. You were mentioning how the cheekbones seem to be, and the minor. That's bone right there. I have really high cheekbones. When I get thinner, you really can notice it because I'm not so fat down there. But I've noticed that on some skulls, there's this big knob right here. There's this bump that's really sticks out. And then others don't. But I've noticed that with the skull, the eye orbitals are becoming very, very square looking. They used to be rounder. Now, this may be just morphology differences between individuals, which happens. But I also think that there's the top part is becoming very square. And I was the top of 3 classes of my anatomy and physiology class, so top scorer. And I'm thinking, if I notice some changes, I think that maybe you ought to look at things. Now, if you don't remember, and that's okay, if you don't remember something, study, like MA says, study one thing that's known to change, like Egypt or the skull or the brain. The cerebellum is different shape again. It's just like crazy. The bone structure, we know the rib cage changed a lot. We know the shoulder girdle changed. And so pick something. If you're not really convinced that there are changes, pick something. The skull, the muscles on the skull. There are muscles on the skull that I don't recognize the name of because they weren't there before. They were positioned differently and they were called something else. What we've been seeing a lot is that, like the biceps now has 2 muscles. The calf muscle has now 2 muscles instead of 1. It used to be just 1 muscle. So things are splitting off into 2s. The bone structure seems to be more robust. The spine seems to be more robust and designed for greater gravity or something, So here we have, this going on. And then the book that I've been narrating about, that channeled book I've been narrating for Julie Soskin, talks about changes in our bone structure in animals appearing just spontaneously, new animals appearing spontaneously, like overnight kind of thing. And that this is part of the Earth's shifting to a higher frequency or energy level. And this was talked about a lot in the 90s. And then we got very materialistic and, people cared more about stocks than they did about spiritual stuff, okay? Survival became more difficult, so people became more material based because survival in this world is very, challenging. So here we have that going on. So those, if you want to, I have really pretty music to it and everything, and some really cool pictures that go with the videos. If you're interested in watching those, they're not very long. They're not very long. And you might find some MEs in there. I have certainly some things that are highly reminiscent of things that we've experienced and noticed. So pay attention to something that shifts, like the skull or the musculature or the skeleton or Egypt. Now you can watch logos if you want. You know, the Coca-Cola logo changed again, but I don't drink Coke, so I don't. That's not something that's part of um, my thing I do. You find something that you know something about that you can pay attention to, just to see if you notice anything. Excuse me. Because this is a strange world we live in, obviously, and my voice is leaving me. The date of the full moon. Oh, yeah. How many of you remember when the moon was never seen during the day? Now you'll see it during the day and the night in a 24-hour period. How does that work? Doesn't make any sense to me. I was outside on Halloween and I noticed something that I thought was a planet or a star. It was probably maybe a planet. And then you know how you can notice the movement of the moon and stuff like that if you're out long enough outside. Well, you're Native American. You're supposed to know all that, Joanna, about all the names of the moon. I know it's ridiculous, isn't it? I think even the Europeans have names for the moon, don't they, Scott? Yeah. Yeah, Scott does a lot of good videos too. I'll admit that. Yeah, the moon stuff is like, it's crazy. But anyway, I'm watching this thing and I notice I have it framed in a certain part of the tree that I'm looking across the court I live in. And I'm there for like 3 hours, waiting for trick-or-treaters. And because some people go to bed early in my household, and so I didn't want them knocking on the door. So I'm looking up and I'm noticing that this thing in the 3 hours has not moved, and it's sparkling with red, green, blue, and I think white, and it's twinkling in all these different colors very profoundly. And it's like what is that supposed to be? Someone tell me what that's supposed to be. That didn't make any sense to me. That's really bizarre. So now the Europeans have harvest names too. Cool. Well, I should get off because I know MA is going to get on supposedly at 1:30. That's in about 26 minutes. We'll see if that happens. Well, he's got a big family and he's a great father and he spends time with his kids, so you're not European. Okay. So the UK is not considered part of Europe. Is that my understanding? Is Europe only the solid part of that continent? I mean, I'm not European either, so. Anyway, so thanks for coming and try to find your own evidence. I have my scar on my arm that changes drastically during some shifts, and I'll be honest with you, when I saw that change overnight, that kind of freaked me out. I don't blame you. Anyway, so thank you for coming and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, because I'm at 189. Just one more. Oh my goodness. So I still like to know where they got 100,000 carrier or messenger pigeons. That's a lot of pigeons. I didn't know there are that many people in the UK that raised them or wherever they raised them. Yeah, I like to. I usually do. I try to subscribe and like to everyone, and spread the love, basically. Anyway, so there you go. A little dose of disconnected MEs. My brain's like that. I have ADD. My brain like goes here, squirrel. Oh, there, it's over there, it's over there. Yeah, I know they are. And look at the breeds of chickens and the breeds of pigeons. They're just like unbelievable. The breeds of cats, the breeds of everything. It's like, yep. Anyway, thank you for coming. And you all have a nice day. And I'll see you next week. I'll have something a little more organized to talk about. It's kind of like all over the place. Black meat chickens. No, 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 no. Maybe the Cajuns would like that because they do blackened fish, but maybe they like the blackened chicken too. I don't know. No. I would like to have home raised chicken again because when I moved to the city, it didn't taste the right. Good night, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Have a great day. Thanks for coming. Keep asking questions. Stay curious. Trust no one. Bye, Crystal. Oh, your pictures of your kitties are so cute. Love y'all. Bye bye.